Good evening, YouTube. It's Therefore We Speak here. I want to come with a quick video on a very interesting topic. I was listening to this Robert Spencer video the other night, and I realized that the Islamic religion, Islam and Calvinism, have a lot in common. In particular, there's a couple of points that I find strikingly similar between Islam and Calvinism. So I just did up this quick document here. Do Calvinists and Muslims believe in the same God? Very briefly, I've got two main issues with Calvinism, two main issues. One is limited atonement, the idea that God could save all people, but simply does not want to. And what is so repulsive about this doctrine is that the Calvinist God could just as easily have saved everyone as damn most, but his preference is to damn most to eternal suffering. That's the Calvinist God. And the second main issue I have with Calvinism is that God himself is the one who has decreed all evil that men would do. And so what's so repulsive about this? Well, it's simply that the Calvinist God, quote unquote, has literally decreed in advance all sin. Every single act of perversion and wickedness of all men and demons comes first into the mind of God. It's his decree. And this is not just my opinion. This is the so-called salvation and God of Calvinism. And for example, I'm just going to give a couple of quick quotes here, and then I'm going to go into this video. Number one, from John Calvin himself, in the Institutes of the Christian Religion, Book 3, Chapter 21, he says, God determined within himself what he wanted to happen with respect to every man. Some are predestined to eternal condemnation. Everyone has been created, predestined to life or to death, and that means hell, eternal hellfire. So that's John Calvin's idea. And we're going to see right away that as Robert Spencer outlines a couple of details, facts about the Islamic religion, that God, Allah, of the Islamic religion bears a lot more similarity to the Calvinist God than the God of the Bible. Second of all, this is not just my opinion, the 1689 London Baptist Confession says, God hath decreed in himself from all eternity by the most wise and holy counsel of his own will, freely and unchangeably, all things whatsoever comes to pass. So this is Calvinist doctrine. This is not biblical doctrine. This is Calvinist doctrine. So in other words, every single wicked thing that happens, every act of sin, every horrible crime committed against innocent people, this is all planned in advance and decreed by God in advance. That's the Calvinist God. Now, is this the God of the Bible? Emphatically, no. However, there is a God like this, and his name is Allah. We're going to listen to a couple of snippets from this video here called Christianity and Islam, a talk that Robert Spencer gave a few years ago. And just a couple of minutes, and you'll see that the God of Islam is actually essentially the same as the God of Calvinism.
There are other things that also show us that maybe it's not all that clear that we all worship the same God. And some of the principles of the Quran actually are quite disturbing in this regard. We know that in the New Testament, in St. Paul's letter to St. Timothy, it says that God desires all men to be saved and come to the knowledge of the truth. And in the Quran, it says actually just the opposite. Allah does not desire all men to be saved and come to the knowledge of the truth. It says in chapter 32, verse 13 of the Quran, says that if we had willed, we being Allah, then we could have guided all men to the truth. But instead, we will fill hell with jinns and men. Jinns are genies, you know, like Barbara Eden, spirit beings. But he's going to fill hell with human beings, you see, just because he wants to. He could have guided all men to the truth, but he decided rather to torture some of them for all eternity.
Okay, so here you have the Muslim or Islamic limited salvation. as Robert Spencer has just outlined in this little clip. The next clip, he's going to go on, he's going to talk about the nature of God himself, or I should say Allah, the God of Islam. And you'll note how close that conception is to the Calvinist God who decreed all the evil that men would do.
Now, this is nothing like the Christian conception of God as love and God as desiring communion with all his creation. This is a radically different vision, and you have to wonder, what is the morality underlying such a principle that Allah is just arbitrarily going to torture people in hell for nothing that they did? Chapter 91, verse 8 of the Quran also says that Allah has placed both good and evil in the heart of man, whereas in...
So there you have Allah under Islam is responsible for putting evil in the heart of man, programming them to do evil, which is essentially exactly what the London Baptist Confession says. God hath decreed in himself all things that will come to pass, good and evil. So men are robots, and God is the actual one responsible for the evil being done in both Islam and Calvinism.
The Christian understanding, evil is actually the result of the rejection of God by the individual.
So when Robert Spencer says in the Christian understanding, of course, he's not talking about the Calvinist understanding. He's talking about the biblical understanding of God as opposed to the Platonic Calvinist concept.
And consequently, the idea that God would place evil in the heart is completely alien to the Christian understanding. What we end up with in the Islamic understanding of God is a very an arbitrary dictator, in essence, who demands obedience, demands submission from his people, and his people are not his children.
So there you have it. Basically, the Islamic conception of God, as outlined here by Robert Spencer in this talk, is remarkably similar to the concept of God that came out of Augustinian Platonism, Neoplatonism, which was adopted, of course, in its entirety by Calvin, and actually made worse by his followers today. So there's plenty of quotations available online from modern Calvinists and historic Calvinists who support both of these ideas. The idea that God simply does not want to save most people, which is why the vast majority will end up in hell forever, because God just wants to be glorified by that rather than saving them. That's what limited atonement means. And of course, the second highly problematic issue being that God himself is the author of all wickedness. So here you have it, Calvinism and Islam. Basically the same ideas in terms of salvation and the nature of God, sadly.